yeah, welcome everyone that's here. And yeah, anyone that's just hopping on, feel free to put your name in your area of expertise or multiple expertises in the chat so we can get to know each other a little bit better. My name is Brianna Ruland, and I'm the communications director with the Central Coast Green Building Council chapter. And yeah, we'll just go ahead and get started. This is the Learning from the Pandemic virtual Pecha Kucha. It's the first of the series that we're hosting, and so we're it's kind of our test run. So welcome, and please have some patience with us today. We've done a lot of preparation, but you know how it is, technological glitches are well, the gnomes are always playing around, so we'll see what happens. But I'm optimistic. So I just want to give you just a brief overview in case this is a new space for anyone. That just you can toggle on the upper right-hand corner for the speaker view or gallery view. We'd like it if everyone stayed muted at the first part of this. So if you're not on mute, and just to know where you can mute and unmute yourself, it's on the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. So yeah, during all the presentations, please pay attention, be aware to stay muted so that none of the speakers get interrupted. And yeah, you're welcome to chat with each other and with everyone or with people individually within the chat box. And yes, also we will be recording this. So if you actually, I don't think anyone's cameras will be shown on the recording anyways, but if you feel uncomfortable with that, then just you can turn your camera off at some point and it won't be on there. But we would like to share this with all of the registrants afterwards. So yeah, I think that's all in terms of technical logistics. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to myself or Alec, USGBC LA. We're kind of like the back of house tech people running that side of things. So yeah, with that, I will pass the mic over to our MC, Kyle Pickett. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for that, Mike. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. My name is Kyle Pickett, and I'm a member of the USGBC Pacific Northern California chapter community. I am co-founder and COO for Urban Fabric Inc., a sustainability consulting and communications practice with offices in San Francisco and in New York. I also serve as the co-founder and executive director of the William J. Worthen Foundation, a 501c3 public benefit corporation that conducts research and creates outreach initiatives on the planning, design, construction, performance, and beauty of the built environment. Globalization has created a myriad of economic and collaborative opportunities, but it has also opened us up for instances like COVID-19. I'm getting some feedback actually from someone who is not muted, maybe transiting. So if you can all just double check your mute buttons, I greatly appreciate it. Who knows, it could be my dog chewing in the background and I'm not catching it. Hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, raging forest fires, rising seas, flooding low-lying areas, and submerging atolls. These are the disasters humanity is used to seeing and experiencing. The American public expects these things, but we've been relatively isolated from pandemics. We send teams of experts to global viral hotspots to evaluate, to treat, and isolate virulent outbreaks. The last widespread pandemic here was 100 years ago, and while some of us look like we were around then, we weren't. So there's very sparse institutional or genetic memory and limited medical data from then to help us respond to today's challenges. Resiliency is no longer a buzzword for recovering from epic geological or meteorological disasters. Resilience is defined as the capacity to recover quickly from difficulty or the ability to spring back with elasticity. 2020, aka the cray-cray year, as my nephew likes to call it, has provided an opportunity for our industry to engage with immediate practices of resiliency to maximize human safety, structural durability, and ultimately our survival. People are at the heart of everything that we do. from design and construction through operations and occupant health and safety. USGBC California Communities welcomes you to this Learning from the Pandemic Pecha Kucha webinar, and this inaugural event will focus on expert insights from architecture, transportation, local governance and advocacy, and HVAC. How do we collectively pivot our design, our engineering, cleaning, and mobility and regulatory practices to respond more quickly to constantly evolving stressors like COVID-19? Following the Pecha Kucha presentations, you'll have the chance to ask questions and engage in discussions in one of the breakout groups. USGBC LA will sort you into your breakout rooms where you will be joined by a speaker and a note taker. This is a 20-minute exercise, so there will be really no time for a round of introductions with your fellow group members. Focus on the kernel of the topic. And after this concludes, your group will report key insights back so we may all learn from your discussions. So let me introduce you to your speakers. Anthony is a lead fellow focused on Gensler's sustainable design practice, co-author of Gensler's Impact Design publication, and a contributing writer to Metropolis and other design periodicals. Anthony really champions the climate positive building solutions, and his work spans all of Gensler's market expertise with a primary focus on office buildings. Mark was appointed business liaison in 2019 to help revive Santa Barbara's commercial core with over 20 years of service to the city of Santa Barbara in various capacities in land development, design review, permitting, capital improvement, project management. Actually, Mark, you've done everything. Mark brings a wealth of knowledge and expertise that people trust. Moses is the general manager of the Fresno County Rural Transit Agency. He oversees the administration and operations of both fixed communities and of both fixed route and demand response services for 13 incorporated cities and 29 unincorporated communities in Fresno County. Since his time with FCRTA, he and his staff have succeeded in replacing over 50% of the fleet with alternative fuel vehicles with a goal of 100% zero emission vehicle fleet by 2025. Moses, that's right around the corner. Prior to this position, he worked for Caltrans and California Public Utilities Commission with over 40 years in public service. Kalina is a mechanical engineer and principal leading Integral Group's San Diego office. She brings over a decade of sustainable design experience in both building science and design engineering. Kalina enjoys interacting with a broad spectrum of professionals across the construction industry, and her goal is to eliminate the distinction between sustainable design and good engineering, believing the two should be synonymous. Brian is the Director of Sustainability for the Ashton Group, a small and mighty consulting firm leading innovation and sustainability initiatives in the cleaning industry. Brian is a former Deputy Director of the California EPA, working with the Department of Toxic Substances Control. He has served as the director of the City of Santa Monica's Office of Sustainability and Environment and is president of the Brian Johnson Surfing Club. You're welcome, Brian. And just a couple tips: if you see a slide you want to screenshot, you're going to have to be quick because each slide auto advances after 20 seconds, whether the speaker is ready for it or not. So get those ready. Additionally, you also have the chance to capture some of the speakers' info later on. So speakers, also please unmute yourself for your prezo. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. The first speaker, please.
Hi, this is Anthony Brower. I wasn't sure if this was part of my slides, but I guess
Alex, sorry. Those slides are just for the, like I was mentioning, but those would be just the intros of the people. And then the next slide is theirs.
Okay.
So yeah, so those ones you have to click to start it.
All right. So let's focus first on the individual well-being and the isolation that we've all experienced from the extended COVID-19 work from home format, which has led to a lack of attention to health. Businesses can actually help returning employees find comfort by providing spaces for exercise or meditative moments, which can give people a sense of choice and control over their day. Another way we can make office environments healthier is actually finding new ways to bring plant life indoors, which is an old idea. It can be part of a broader effort towards adding elements of nature into the workplace, which most of us recognize as biophilia. A lot of proponents of this approach actually maintain that design interventions that incorporate nature or mimic natural systems are linked to decreased stress, enhanced creativity, and accelerated recovery from illness. In the workplace, it can also lead to financial benefits such as a reduction in the use of sick days. This is an image from a project, from an Adobe project up in the San Francisco area. Medical journals are starting to report that viruses last just a few hours on copper compared to days on other materials. Copper building products come with some protective coatings that nullifies this effect. If your clients are looking for copper for this reason, be sure to advise them that the discoloration that comes with specifying uncoated products. Office environments with ample outdoor meeting spaces and focus areas that function rain or shine will actually take on a new importance as critical leasing amenities. This example converts the space between office building and parking garage into a tapestry of familiar outdoor themes: kitchen, game room, living room, and so forth. Dedicated tenant outdoor spaces previously considered a casual amenity should actually become a top priority. Employers should embrace the outdoor space for meeting and focus work in order to provide new and engaging experiences for staff to interact while safely distancing. I caught up with myself. The recent residential trend has been to reduce unit sizes in the name of efficiency. Just enough space for a living room, seating arrangement, perhaps even a room for a dining table, a tight kitchen, and a sleeping area. While this trend will likely continue, we now have to consider how a home office could be part of this mix. It should go beyond simply designing a niche that can barely hold an IKEA desk. Perhaps landlord will be willing to offer pre-designed workstation packages as a leasing incentive. Such a package actually could be designed to bring in a focus space which includes a desk, ergonomic chair, lighting, and built-in storage. Some employers that have made long-term work from home plans for a significant portion of their workforce. Beyond the talent and commute benefits that we all know about, employers will surely consider reducing their real estate, which brings the added benefit of reducing their operational energy footprint. But the idea that reducing real estate in the work from home shift reduces power usage has flaws. The cumulative effect of conditioning individual workers' homes is actually more taxing on the power grid than heating a single office space, especially in the US where air conditioning is ubiquitous. Indoors, our first reactions were to institute physical distancing in our offices by spacing out employees and their work areas further. But this means providing larger spaces, the unintended consequence of which being more space conditioning, more lighting, more material usage, and more area to clean and disinfect. Physical distancing has also sparked the further exploration of whether we can space out our teams without providing more space through shift work. Putting aside the logistical challenge of asking 2/3 of your staff to work during either the twilight or moonlight hours, spaces that would normally have systems running only during the day would now be increasing this usage upwards of threefold. A 6-month transition plan back to full capacity could result in 2 years worth of hyper-concentrated energy emissions. So it's something to think about when we talk about shift work and building usage over the workday. At the end of the day, people really are expecting to return to the office, but it should look different. Our work from home survey revealed that in order to feel comfortable returning to the office, a combination of stricter sick policies, changes around office cleaning and space configurations that accommodate physical distancing must be made a priority. Topping the list of new measures and practices viewed favorably by respondents are increased social distancing and more flexibility to work from home as needed, each with more than a 75% favorable rating. People do want to come back to the office, but they're expecting a shift. Most people want to come back to the office 2 to 3 days a week.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Mark Aguilar with the City of Santa Barbara. I'm the business liaison, and we'll get going after this slide. Beautiful shot of downtown Santa Barbara and our famous dolphins there. So before the Before COVID, back in 2017, we established a program to address vacancy rates in our downtown corridor. We gave priority placement on design review agendas and priority building permit plan review to those vacant spaces of retail on the first floor. And we provided some additional services to help folks on the front end. But when COVID hit, we were in a hurry suddenly to get everything online because our lobbies were closed. So we had to spend a lot of time scanning plans that were already in and then moving into a system that took in applications and permits and payments. It was on our to-do list, just not this soon. So we had to move to online permit inspections. That's Roger there in the picture doing an actually he's not doing Apple FaceTime, but we're using Apple FaceTime and Google Duo to do the on-site inspections. We were also in a hurry to get back into our meetings. It took us about a month. You can just see on the slide, this is April 15th, one of our Historic Landmarks Commission meetings. This is great. I was impressed at how quickly staff got this done, but it does require some additional staff added to make the meeting function, not the usual staff that are just coordinating the meeting. We needed to be quick and nimble. Council took action to allow our city administrator to close certain streets, State Street, our main drag downtown, and even some side streets right off of our main drag. There's some outdoor expansion shown, which I'm going to get to in one of the next slides. We also made efforts to restripe parking. So we have perpendicular parking on some segments of our street, just so we can get cars in and out, and they can still serve some of the restaurants that are up on this block. Public Works was really great with this. They were fast. We developed guidelines, Public Works did, for parklets, and we gave folks some ideas of how to separate their tables, provide ADA access, and to be creative with the type of parklet and outdoor dining area that they would have on the street surface, kind of in that parking space area. So some folks are geared up for nighttime. Some folks were just using the barrels of their winery. I should have had some more photos that's really indicative, and you probably see some of this in your own communities going on right now. Oh, one thing that comes up is stormwater. So we're starting to worry about rains in the winter. Just more examples of the expansion onto our main drag. Yeah, maybe not everybody's wearing a mask in some of these photos, but it's been very dynamic in the mid portion of our downtown area. Pretty exciting. Kind of a mixed bag, but overall this has been a tremendous boon to business. This is our parking structure, our Granada Garage rooftop. We have some local martial arts studios that are using the city's parking lots and parking structures to have exercises out there. No sparring, keeping their distance, but not having to wear masks for that type of activity. During COVID, very quickly, we began waiving parking fees, as well as permits for those who had monthly permits to those parking spaces, waived parking business improvement area taxes for the first quarter. And then once we did go back into fees, we limited the time. And kept the community informed. Actually, as the business liaison, I was fielding a lot of questions about reopening types of businesses in those sectors from folks, and guiding them to their options for outdoor business expansion to parking lots, the street, or the sidewalk. Those are all my colleagues there. Those are my real friends, and they are happy to be at home. I prefer to be in the office myself, but they're all acclimating well to this. I think they're going to miss home when they have to come back eventually. And lastly, this is really just us trying to get back to what is normal for us with our old Spanish Days fiesta and our solstice parades. This is our hope, and this is what keeps us moving forward. Would love to talk more to you in the breakout rooms. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Moses Stites here. We started operation in 1979, and as you can see by this map, it's a good depiction of Fresno County, including the current fire that's going up there in the northeast corner there of the map. But we have 13 incorporated cities, 29 unincorporated, and we service that entire area. This is our fleet, which is 50% EV and also compressed natural gas. We have no diesel vehicles whatsoever, but this gives you the variation of the buses that we use on the demand response and fixed routes as well. It's a good depiction of what we can use. These are our seniors that we transport. We transport a lot of disabled and seniors, and they also ride for free in the unincorporated communities and the incorporated as well. And also we started providing free passes for veterans in a couple months ago. This is one of the senior centers in many communities out there, both urban and rural areas are good depiction of this. And this gives you a good variation of why seniors go to the community centers, not just to get a meal, but to socialize, interpersonal. Also, they play a lot of bingo, cards, pool, whatever they're up to. This particular site is interesting because this senior center was closed after March 18th, after the pandemic. And it just shows you what the sterile environment looks like after the pandemic, because seniors couldn't go to the senior centers any longer, which is a sad reality. This is a ramp being deployed for a senior using a mobility device. We have the driver that gets out of the vehicle that is there to assist the passenger in the event that anything can, if they need assistance. And these ramps are very applicable for seniors. Since the pandemic, this is one of the get-ups that the drivers have, one of many. We make masks mandatory, not just for the drivers, but also for the passengers. We also provide free masks for all the passengers. To date, we've only had one reject a ride, no mask, no ride. This is the dispatch center, and the dispatchers ask the passengers when they make a reservation, because it's real time, the basic questions about if they have a temperature, have they been sick, any coughs, things of that nature. And they're pretty good responding to those questionnaires, in spite of our ridership that has fallen about 60 to 80%. Here's another shot of some seniors boarding. And as you can see, the ramp is pretty parallel to the sidewalk, as some of the communities in the rural areas do not have sidewalks. So you get the curb gutter here, which makes a good parallel transition. We started doing meal delivery after the pandemic. And this is one of our drivers providing a meal to a disabled passenger who could not get out of his home. And he has 3 meals there for the day. We were able to do this in coordination with the schools, food banks, and some restaurants were very generous with that. This is one of the devices that are being included in or placed in the buses to provide better protection for the drivers. We've been very fortunate, knock on wood, that we haven't had any viruses transmitted among the drivers or the passengers. We're also doing a study with the CSUF, California State University, Fresno, on the HVAC system and how the different buses work. And that lower slide on the right is one that we use smoke to detect how a particle transmits from the front to the rear of the bus. The funding is a great opportunity for us as we continually pursue electric vehicles. And to the right is a ultraviolet light that we're going to be purchasing 50 of these to place in the buses to help us with the disinfectant of the buses. And they're on a timer so that people aren't affected. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kalina Ferreira. I'm a mechanical engineer with Integro Group down in San Diego. And we're going to look at the HVAC systems and the mechanical systems and how that's being impacted and how we're rethinking those now in light of COVID and what we can do there. So again, we're focusing primarily on public spaces, office buildings here. Obviously, it's going to be different depending on the usage of the building. So, you know, we can only cover so much in a 20-second slide, but we're going to try to keep this general, broadly looking at our public spaces going forward. So within COVID, I think we have to acknowledge that there's a process. Initially, we left our public buildings and now we're starting to get back into them. And so we'll look at what we can do with our existing systems, but also be looking towards the future of how we upgrade and adapt those systems and then really plan for a more resilient future moving forward so that we have healthy, safe spaces and are ready for the next one. We have to remember that we're still learning about this virus. So I'm not an epidemiologist and we can't eliminate the risk of COVID, but we can reduce it, not with any silver bullets or magic technology, but by just having good sound design and really thinking about the way we design our spaces in a different way and paying attention to the health of people. With this particular virus, we're aware that there's multiple routes of transmission. We've seen from science as it's developed that the direct person-to-person transmission of droplets through the air seems to be the most critical path. But we also have to look at the more circuitous paths of how those droplets travel through our mechanical systems. And so we'll look at both. And to really minimize those risks in those spaces, we're going to focus on 3 areas: maximizing the ventilation, minimizing our recirculation, and then optimizing the filtration in the systems where we have them. And maximizing the ventilation is going to be the first one we're going to start with, because we've seen that the least amount of transmission happens when you're in outdoor spaces. So the more we can make our indoor spaces like those, the better off we'll be. So really maximizing the ventilation through your space. Natural ventilation certainly seems to be the best way to do that here in California, where we have that option. Spaces that have more challenging climates, we have to consider the energy trade-offs for that. But where we've got opportunities to open windows and bring that air through, we can get more airflow. Failing that, we're going to have to rely on our central systems. So evaluating the system you have, making sure it's working. Outside air dampers seem to be one of the most common failures in these central mechanical systems. And then figuring out if you can increase the outside air flowing through that, program in sequences that have purges before and after occupancy to really improve the airflow to your zones. When we're looking at those floors, we have to really evaluate the different tenants within the space and really try to treat those as, you know, the way people are talking about separate pods and not be transferring air between those tenants, and relook at how we evaluate the transient spaces between those. So the corridors, the lobbies, the elevator lobbies, and the spaces that are often overlooked are now becoming more critical. Within those zones, we need to start looking at zones as far as how the air moves through them. So not just zoning based on temperature and thermal comfort, but also thinking of first air. So when we supply the air to the space and it's fresh outside air or cleanly filtered, taking it through that and getting it back up into a return duct, not pulling it across your entire zone and transferring that air over. But making sure that within that zone, we do have good air change. So we're not getting stagnant areas where we don't have the air passing through, and that can lead to an accumulation of these pollutants or concentration of virus. So evaluating and using more detailed modeling to make sure that we're getting clean airflow through spaces to get good air change. As we're looking at new buildings, we can consider other systems that actually have an improved air ventilation effectiveness so that we get once through air. So underfloor distribution or displacement systems where we supply air low and it moves through the space once, as opposed to mixing and circulating air through that space. Where we do have to circulate the air, we want to optimize filtration. Now we say optimize, not maximize, because going all the way to HEPA filters is not going to be appropriate for most environments. Usually a good MERV 13 or MERV 14 is at a size that it can capture those droplets without having too much negative impact on your fan energy. And then we really want to look beyond the systems and the ductwork and start trying to consider in-room options, particularly where you have dense spaces, conference rooms, classrooms. If we can capture any of those contaminants within the room, then we avoid bringing them through the systems and distributing them to other spaces. So evaluating indoor options needs to start being part of the HVAC conversation. But really, we need to look at all of these different solutions. There's not going to be a one-size-fits-all. There's not a magic bullet. You need to get in and evaluate the systems that you have, or really design the space for the use that you're going to use it for, whether that's going to be dense populations, whether you're going to have vulnerable populations, whether you've got different people that move through that space or single tenants. So summing this up, in existing buildings, we want to look at the systems that you've got, really figure out how we can optimize those with the systems and the sequences. and tailor it to fit the systems. And then in new buildings, optimize that natural ventilation and outdoor spaces, and start using some more sophisticated technologies to really maximize the airflow through that space.
Alex, you can go ahead and advance these slides. Oh, maybe go back to his first. Let's make sure Brian is. I'm unmuting you, Brian. If I'm not able to, you're gonna have to do it yourself.
Okay. Brianna, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Great. Okay. Wonderful. Let's get started then. Again, I'm Brian. I am your host on this whirlwind Pecha Kucha journey through the cleaning industry. Realizing that for most of you, unless you're in the cleaning industry, this will probably be the longest stretch of you've ever thought about cleaning in your life. There we go. It's a rough industry. I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. It's really hard on workers, and it's really hard to be a successful contractor. The last decades in this industry, it's really been a race to the bottom as the demands for cheaper and faster and to do more with less has really changed an already pretty difficult industry to be successful in. There is a bright light in our industry where we have really moved from a niche market of green cleaning into 30% multi-billion-dollar a year across the United States cleaning market, supported by folks like you and these organizations that you see listed here. And then came COVID. In some respects, everything changed at that moment. In other respects, nothing really changed. One thing for sure, though, is that the cleaning industry went from a behind-the-scenes activity, the folks who empty your recycling bins and wipe down the counters, to being recognized as a primary public health protection strategy. So what hasn't changed? And this is really important. It's critical that you understand that we now have currently in our toolbox the products, the processes, and the equipment to address the virus. We're not like the healthcare industry where we don't yet have the tools to address it. What has changed is the perspectives that have shifted enormously about cleaning. We're no longer cleaning for appearance, we are cleaning for health. And this is a really important shift. We use risk-based assessments, increase in frequency, prioritizing surfaces, more informed decisions about what to clean and disinfect. And the pandemic has really hit every economic sector. Everyone is trying to do more. Industry standards are changing. They're using hospital-grade products, program branding, deep cleaning, all of these pointing towards trying to reinstill confidence in your occupants and customers that they can come back into your building. Let's talk about some of the positives in this new attention to cleaning and disinfection. Advances have emerged in whole building certifications for COVID cleaning, from LEED to IWBI to ISSA's Global Biorisk Advisory Council, each developing standards for healthy building maintenance. We've also, when cleaning for health, we have developed and are using adenosine triphosphate meters to help measure cleanliness. Autonomous devices are freeing up labor to focus on more labor-intensive items. And folks are really looking at design features in a more systemic and holistic way. There's also troubling things going on. This assumption that more is better, that dumping large amounts of chemicals into the built environment, we know now that's not a sustainable or a healthy solution, nor is turning to the nuclear cleaning options when they're not warranted. So we really don't need to divert hospital-grade chemicals away from the healthcare industry. The best products in the industry also aren't going to work unless we train our janitors. And lastly, you don't want to walk through a mat saturated with pesticides with your $800 Jimmy Choos. Some of the trends that we do want to watch: folks are buying devices that generate on-site cleaners and disinfecting solutions, and many of them generate a chlorine-based product. And for me personally, I have some significant health concerns about that. This other issue is hygiene theater, the overt demonstration that something is being done, like aerial fogging in an office building, to publicly demonstrate that you're addressing COVID. A lot of folks are going that way. Also, you probably know, see these technologies. Oh, we're going to go back to that one. I'm so sorry. Green cleaning is moving to, thank you. There we go. I just wanted to mention that of all these technologies that you see on the slide, EPA and CDC do not currently list those as being demonstrated effective against COVID-19. Okay, so while they may serve as an adjunct to some cleaning and disinfectant, it's important to understand that they, from a legal perspective, are not accepted by EPA. We want to continue moving in spite of the pandemic to sustainable cleaning, because the whole movement really stalled with green cleaning products. And what here you see here is just an example. This is Pride Industry. It's a janitorial company that moved into sustainable and social equity and hiring individuals with disabilities. And that's really been an expansion. So our last takeaways here are really important, I think. It's important. Janitors are your friends, and they are doing work that is really helping protect public health. The products that we have now are very successful and effective at combating COVID. The way you design buildings, and I know architects are a tough room, has a lot to do with how feasible it is and how expensive it is to maintain a building. And lastly, we're really focused on moving to sustainable cleaning. It's a much broader brush that we paint cleaning solutions with, and this is the time we're focused on it. Thank you.
Thank you, speakers. That was a whirlwind, wasn't it? Brian, how you good? Thank you all for that, and just kind of taking a deep breath and collectively drawing all of that in, even though I knew what some of I looked through the slide deck actually yesterday. I cheated, but I ended up scribbling all kinds of little notes. So I'm sure you guys did as well, and we'll be ready to jump into our breakout rooms, breakout sessions. And I just wanted to throw out there a couple questions for you all to consider as you go into your breakout rooms. And just before I go into that particular part of it, if you have not put your name and your Zoom email address into the Google Doc that was shared in the chat earlier on, actually, Bree or if one of you can just move that Google Doc to the front, just to make sure that we have everyone signed in for the breakout room. It gives them an opportunity now as we go into these discussion ideas. So was there anything that was striking or really important information that you learned from the Pecha Kucha that you would like to explore further? I know I took a few notes, and I would love to jump into all of the breakout sessions, but as the facilitator, I guess I have that freedom. I could jump around into the breakout rooms. Have you seen the workforce within your area of expertise finding resiliency and successful adaptation in these times? And then what are the most prominent issues that you and your clients or within your firm, what are the prominent issues, and what, if any, are the solutions that you've explored? Let's see, and just to make sure that everyone was, okay, so the Google Doc is in there. If you guys have not done that, just go ahead and take a moment to jump in and put your name into the breakout session, and then USGBC LA will sort you into your rooms. Bree, anything to add at this point?
Yeah, no, that was great. Everyone, basically the breakout room will just pop up as an option and ask you if you want to go there. And so you have to click yes in order to get to that place. And then the breakout rooms will be 20 minutes. You guys have, everyone has 20 minutes together. And I believe that there's a warning, 5-minute warning or a few minute warning beforehand. And then at the end, it will either, I'm not sure actually, maybe Alex can clarify, if it will automatically bring everyone back at the end, or it will, you have the choice also to click and come back. But yeah, anyone that, there is somebody designated for each group to take notes already. So if anyone needs anything, I would say reach out to Alex and, or come back into the main room. Basically, if you have any issues, you can come back into the main room, ask a question to him, and then come back to the breakout room. So yeah, I think we're ready.
Yeah, I'm just wrapping up adding people to the breakout room. So we need
Yeah,
maybe
thank you.
1 or 2 more minutes.
And if anyone for any reason wasn't able to get on the list, then you'll just be a straggler with Alex, and then he'll put you there. So no worries. Yeah, that was really wonderful and a lot of information that I am excited to digest with everyone. At least I'm going to be in the green cleaning group. But each of your presentations was really full of insights, and I just really appreciate you guys all putting that together and sharing in this format that we requested of you, which is copy. So
I think also one of the things that we want you guys to, to think about as you go into your breakout rooms and have the discussion, digesting, what's happening or what just happened within the Pecha Kucha presentations, is what, the next event could look like. Because at the end of this, and I'm going to give you a reminder in the closing before we wrap up, that there will be a survey. Fairly brief. Want to get your insights on that, what worked, what didn't work, and then, potential topics, for the next one. I'm just really excited that this is happening, because these are such important conversations in this time, and resiliency is ultimately the goal, right? We want to get to a point of being able to bounce back from these, whether it's a global pandemic or an earthquake. We want to bounce back fairly quickly. So. Okay, I'm stepping away for a bit. Alex, do your thing. I'll be back.
All right, I think that I've assigned everybody that signed up in the list, so go ahead and join those groups. Know that if you need to come back to the main room, you can click leave room on the bottom right of your screen, and then it'll give you the option to just come back to the main room as opposed to leaving the entire Zoom session. But yeah, enjoy the conversations, and let me know if you haven't been assigned to a room that you'd like.
I need to get to one with Mark. Kathy Falconer.
Here, one moment. I believe I assigned you, Kathy. Which room was it? Which topic? It was transportation.
No, not at all. With coordinating permits and so on within the city. Mark? Business.
Okay, local governance. Gotcha.
Right.
Hey, Alex, I think I'm supposed to be leading the HVAC one.
All right. Here we go. Sorry about that. HVAC. There you go. How's everybody else doing? I'm assuming that we're all in the main session by choice.
Oh, sorry, go on.
I was going the architecture one, but I guess I didn't get that.
Here we go. There you go.
Thank you.
Hi, this is
Erica?
Pecha. Can you put me in the local governance, please?
Yes, sir.
Could I go to the green cleaning one?
Of course. Here we go.
Thank you.
Everybody else doing all right? Hey, it looks like you're muted.
It's you and I. What do you want to talk about?
Oh man. Hey, tell me a little bit about yourself. We don't really know each other.
we don't. I don't know where to start. Do you have anyone, just one thing that I was kind of looking at earlier, do you have any of the breakout rooms that are like really short on people? Or they kind of separated out?
They're pretty evenly spread. I mean, HVAC and green cleaning only have 4 people in each, while the others have like 5 to 6. So.
Would you toss me into the HVAC one?
Of course.
Awesome.
There you go.
Awesome. Thanks, Alex.
Mm-hmm.
wrap up or key takeaways.
Hey, Alex, I think before we do this, before we get to this slide, we will just go through each person who is taking the notes, and they will share a summary of, yeah, what we just talked about. So I actually think maybe it's better if we just don't share a screen at the moment. And you can just see each other. So yeah, let's just go in the order of.
And this is Ben. I was. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Ben. And I guess actually wait 1 second, because I wanted just to be clear that everybody that's sharing, we have about three minutes or so. I'm noticing we're a little bit early on time, so maybe maximum 5 minutes, but 3 to 5 minutes, and then if you go over, then Alex will shift to the other person. Go ahead, Ben.
We can do it in 3. I believe in our ability to move quick. So the main topic we talked about in our breakout in architecture was really around the integration of outdoor spaces in new and different ways. How do we get people to really sort of rethink, how to evaluate and use their outdoor space? There's some good discussion around the offsets of indoor costs versus outdoor costs, not only looking at, the MEP and HVAC issues for indoor that are avoided sort of with outdoor, but different use of services and materials. And so there could be potentially more value in sort of leveraging our outdoor space in a different way, and really using that more as an amenity. We did have some really interesting discussion around outdoor air quality issues, and specifically, people spending more time outside, creating more awareness around outdoor air quality and really the equity issues, around that, and the fact that the people in disadvantaged communities tend to have much poorer air quality. And so if we're allowing in outdoor spaces, we're almost putting those people even more in a situation where they're forced to experience less quality air. And we have some good discussion as well around, how do we evolve existing buildings to include more outdoor space, and some of the challenges there, but that there are a lot of innovative ways to do that. And yeah, I think what we're seeing right now is a rush for people to sort of haphazardly put those in place, but through thoughtful design, we can probably use our outdoor spaces much more effectively long term. I don't know if anyone has anything they want to add, or if Anthony has anything he wants to add. That was what our main conversation was around.
That was it. Thanks, Ben.
Yeah.
Who's next, Bree?
So, I believe Paul Poirier, local government.
Okay. Yeah, we talked about governance. We had some folks from Santa Barbara, some folks from Ventura, San Diego, and Visalia. And so some of the successes we talked about were going virtual to meetings for the Architectural Board of Review, the Historic Landmarks Committee, the Planning Commission, the City Council, having virtual inspections and online permitting through Acela. It's been effective for both users and keeping all these city processes rolling. The Zoom meetings provided increased productivity, and they're convenient for participation for out-of-town clients. Telecommuting from home has been relatively successful for city employees. They've had to have institutional flexibility around governance and specifically quorums. It's hard to get quorums, so they have flexibility pulling landscape architects off of one committee to serve on another if they don't have a quorum at a particular committee meeting. So they're instituting some flexibility, and there's some question about how that happens within the confines of a government. So they're going to share some information about how that gets done. And then we talked a bit about State Street, how that's a success to keep the restaurants everyone holds dear in business downtown. And that we had a minority objection to closing down State Street from retail tenants, but retail had already taken a big hit anyway, pre-pandemic, and so they were hanging on by a thread anyway. So I think keeping the few businesses that were successful down there was important. We talked about challenges. One was city financing and budgeting. As social events and park events went downhill, the Parks Department and less parking demand downtown, and they stopped charging for parking. They laid off parks people and parking lot people. And then as those activities are starting to ramp back up, they're starting to hire those people back on to keep them employed. Bed tax is down quite a bit here in the Santa Barbara, and that funds a lot of programs, so that also poses some additional financial challenges. Visalia reported that their retail tenants maybe weren't doing as poorly as they had been in downtown Santa Barbara, so they were more resistant to closing down the main streets to keep the restaurants healthy. And so it's different in different areas. I think that Santa Barbara has, as a resident of Santa Barbara, done a lot of things that are very successful. And I think we can all learn from each other in that regard.
Thank you, Paul. And Jamaica, on the topic of transportation.
Yeah, so we had a great group of people in our breakout session, and we talked about just how much information there was to process in this wonderful webinar. So something that we wanted to explore a little bit further were the public health measures that our transit operators have had to implement, and one of them has been reducing the number of passengers per bus to a 10-person maximum. And sometimes that requires refusing service to some passengers because it's first come, first served at that point. And so that has been one of the downsides. One of the upsides is the drivers have more time in between their routes and their service times. So they're able to take that time to clean common areas in between serving the public. They're distributing masks in Fresno to riders, and they are distributing food, as Moses pointed out, to veterans and the elderly who are unable to get out of their homes and travel. And then each night the vehicles are deep cleaned. But one thing that we're noticing, especially in talking to everyone here today, is that there's not just a need to adapt for public health protection, but there's a need to adapt for safety now with the wildfires and the potentials for flooding and other climate-related events. We can anticipate them, but we don't know when they're going to happen. And so we need to think about these things as soon as possible and begin to make changes to insulate ourselves against them. And overall, there's just a sense of how rapidly we all need to adapt. We were, all of us, impressed with the city of Santa Barbara's response and their adaptation of street space. And we all agree that we'd like to see that happen throughout the state, in our areas as well, being more accommodating of pedestrian and bicycle traffic, and getting people access to places versus getting cars access to places. The other thing that came up in our discussion is the need to reinforce our electrical infrastructure. And we were just noticing the intersectionality between transportation and so many other institutional agencies, where we're promoting the use of green vehicles and the greening of fleets, but that requires electricity in a lot of cases. So we need to begin to look there and just try to find our blind spots or our weak points and boost them up. The other thing that we didn't really get to talk about, but that I was hoping would be something that could be explored in the future, is how to design the transit stations at airports, and how those public centers might be adjusted to go forward into the future and be more resilient. And so with that, that's the gist of what we talked about.
That was an excellent summary. Thank you so much, Mika. The next one would be HVAC. Josh.
All right, thanks, Bree. Yeah, we had a good conversation. We had a few of our people in the group were from Northern California. So as we started talking about the HVAC side of things and ventilation and dove into Kalina's presentation regarding trying to maximize ventilation, bring in clean outside air, the obvious question came up is Candace showed us the outdoor space kind of similar to Kyle's up in Northern California. It's really red and really dark, and it's beginning to think about bringing in this natural ventilation as we're trying to clean the indoor space because of the pandemic and because of COVID. What does it also mean to have to account for wildfire seasons here in California? So really thinking about, kind of different seasons. There's a number of other allergens that are out there, but just that, I think to Kalina's point that we really have to take it on a kind of like a space per space basis or one system at a time, because it's all going to be very different, both from an existing building to new construction. But we had a lot of conversation, I think, a little bit around that, but then also around the filtration and what that means in terms of filtering out the virus versus sort of normal conditions, and what are some of the steps that people should take, and that could really depend on the space usage, but then also like, looking into maybe in-room or portable units for filtration, depend like on the high sort of occupancy spaces like conference rooms or maybe classrooms or something like that, to be able to kind of capture some of the virus or the droplets there. And I think, we kind of were just really going through a little bit about what Kalina touched on with the displacement air ventilation, kind of combining that to make sure that you're not also pulling air from between zones, and kind of being careful there. So I think we kind of ran out of time as we were going to the next steps to talk about what we would like to see. I think I would like to, maybe ask Kalina's take on this, but maybe think about the next step would be, what does this really look like from an owner's perspective, kind of asking some of these questions in terms of where do they begin, both from an existing building perspective and then thinking about the new construction if it is a new development. Just because it does seem very difficult to, have a system in place that is probably, using recirculation or does have air coming in from different zones, and how do you kind of now begin to block that off, or what are, some of that retrofit sort of approaches look like? And I don't know if there was anything else that we kind of touched on. I think we got really wrapped up in thinking about wildfire seasons and allergens and stuff outside, and making sure that we're, keeping the indoor clean as much as we can while factoring in all of these other, things that we're having to deal with here in California.
Thank you so much, Josh. So I was in the green cleaning group with David Adler, Brian Johnson, and Erica Kessler. And we, everyone that was there was kind of just young and curious, and we're asking Brian questions. So really, first we wanted to know about the resources and where we can figure out, where do we look to find these lists of certified products that we can use to clean. But then there's also lists that are, within the APA that has lists, but then just for kind of like basic cleaning that work. But then there are lists that are more sustainable with products that are much more healthier for us. And those are, I would like to just share the links with everybody afterwards. We'll have a follow-up email, and so I'll share the links to those lists and websites with everyone afterwards. But they're called Safer Choice, and one of the EPA's lists called Design for Environment. And there's over 425 products on there. So this is really a great resource to look to when you're trying to figure out what to clean your spaces with. That's not so, as Brian says, nuclear. And then he was asked if he'd seen any shifts in the health declaration of the greening products, and just really, then he mentioned Green Seal and how there are more companies that are focusing on getting eco certifications for green cleaning products. And there's also a link in there, which I'll send out as well, to get more information. And yeah, just that it's like the simplest way to kind of ensure that you're getting the right products for whatever space you're trying to clean, is actually finding a procurement officer or somebody that does similar work like Brian, like the Ashkin Group, that they're really specialists in this area and specialists who focus on green cleaning. And so I asked, how do people find experts in green cleaning? And he could, at this point, speak just about, from his experience. And Steve Ashkin, who's apparently known as the grandfather of green cleaning since the 80s. And so just their website and them are a really, really great resource. And I'm sure if they have too much work to do in these days, they can also direct you to other folks who are very well versed in this area. And then the last question was asked about the direct effect of the cleaners and the people who are actually doing the cleaning and on their lives, and how they're impacted in these times. And just, yeah, Brian was mentioning how it's really difficult for them to actually find a safe environment and a safe way for them to do their work, especially if they're not using super green cleaning products, which most people are not right now, unfortunately, because they think they have to go into this really extreme level, which is not necessary. And so, yeah, the workers and the frontline workers are really people that we need to be thinking about and considering when we're talking about cleaning products. And yeah, just the expectations that are put on them to clean, and the exposure to the chemicals that they have and how they can protect themselves. And also just, yeah, shout out to them, because it's a hard job. It's a really hard job physically and mentally, and that they're so necessary and needed right now. So yeah, that's all I have. And if anyone else from that group feels like you want to add something else, we have a minute.
Bree, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
I just want to add, sort of as the general tone of what we were talking about, is looking for the tools for building designers, building owners, facility managers, building occupants, to help ensure that the way that they maintain their buildings is actually contributing to a positive health outcome and not a part of the problem. And so in general, there are tools out there. We're happy to share them. There is a path forward. It's being blazed by many folks, not just us, but others as well. And that can give you specifications, standards, tips, things you need to think about to look for when you want to make sure that you are providing sustainable cleaning and maintenance of your building.
Yes, thank you so much, Brian. Yeah, so that's all of the summaries for the breakout rooms. Thank you so much for summarizing all of that, everyone. And I just wanted to say, Kyle, that we didn't end up getting the survey, like the automatic survey, to work. But we did, Alex pulled together a Google form. And so I can put that in the chat, and then I'll also send it out in the follow-up email to everyone. So yeah.
Cool. And just to kind of give everyone a brief little kind of preview of what that survey may look like, based upon this discussion, were the top 3 topics that seem to be a priority to focus on for future discussions. The most valuable element of this experience for you. Do you have any suggestions? So that kind of thing. We will also be following up with the entire attendee list with some insights out of this presentation. But the one common thing that I heard throughout all of this, in not only the breakout sessions, but then also in the Pecha Kucha, is a thoughtful design and deployment strategy. So whether we're talking about HVAC or whether we're talking about mobility, how that impacts seniors, and how, as a high risk population, what does that mean for transporting them to places? I really appreciated Kalina's maximize ventilation, minimize recirculation, optimize filtration, 3 really easy talking points to consider and to think about. And then also Brian's notion of hygienic theater. This is all something that, we respond to. We respond to theater, and this whole idea that if you can see it, it must be doing something good, and that may not be the case. In addition to, recognizing that there are people that are working really, really hard to ensure that these spaces are clean and safe for everybody as we move forward into this, into hopefully a post-COVID future where we won't have to be so stressed about this, but we use it as a learning opportunity for resilience. So again, thank you all. Thank you to the speakers. Thank you to you organizers. We will all be in touch with you in the next week or so. Bree, is that an accurate statement, or did I lie to everybody? Okay, accurate statement with some of the insights out of this, some of the breakout rooms, and then also some of the contact information for the speakers, so you can be in touch with them directly. So again, thank you everyone. Bree or Alex, do you guys have any parting pearls of wisdom, or do you want to just close the thing out? Oh, by the way, this session was recorded as a friendly reminder, but I hope to see you all on the next session. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Kyle. If you want, I think everyone we can just go out together and unmute and say our piece. I'm happy with that. I'm satisfied. And yeah, I really just appreciate everyone that showed up today and shared your wisdom, your knowledge.
Oh, awesome.
And listened.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.